thank you everybody, first of all, for coming very far tonight. I'm sure some of you have made the long journey from your bedrooms down to your front room. I appreciate that. Yeah, as Tony said, I'm here tonight to talk about the Wadsley and Loxley Archaeological Survey that we've done as part of the SLLP, which is the Sheffield Lakeland Landscape Partnership. I'm the community archaeologist of the SLLP. I've been working there for 18 months now, I think it is. Unfortunately, a lot of that time has been under COVID restrictions. No, it's coming up on 2 years, in fact, actually. So yeah, most of that time has been under COVID restrictions. So we've not been able to do a great deal of work since I started. But one of the outputs of the SLLP, because it's funded by the Lottery Heritage Fund, is to get volunteers involved in their heritage. Also, it's part of the strand of the SLLP. They also have ecological, natural environments strands as well, and I have a small part in it within the archaeology of Sheffield and the area. To give you an idea where the SLLP is, it's basically the edge of Sheffield, the west side of Sheffield, the getting onto the Peak District. So from Langsett Reservoir in the north all the way down to Redmires Reservoir in the south, and basically centred on Bradfield and around. And one of the projects that I first set up when I started was the Wadsley and Loxley Archaeological Survey. So for those that don't know where Wadsley and Loxley Common is, here's just a quick little map to show you. Just grab this off Google. You can see how Wadsley and Loxley Common just sits really just on the west of Sheffield there, on the way out to High Bradfield, out of the area of the SLP. So we're pretty much on the edge of the SLLP area itself. But if you don't know the area, or you don't know the common itself, it is well worth going up there. I didn't actually know too much about it until I took this role, and I was amazed at such a nice place it is, just on the edge of Sheffield as well. So easy to get to. It's well worth visiting, and I hope some more of you will go and visit there if you haven't been already, after this talk at least. So why were we looking at the Wadsley and Loxley Common from an archaeological point of view? I did a quick search on Heritage Gateway, which is, I'm sure a lot of you know this, but it's the online resource for a lot of archaeological finds and features and the historic environments across England, and you can search anywhere, and it'll show you any kind of recorded archaeological remains. And I did a quick search there on the Heritage Gateway, and as you can see, I located it directly on top of Wadsley and Loxley Common. That's the purple box on the left-hand side. And 2 results came up on the South Yorkshire SMR. Now, these are the only ones that are online. So there will be paper records within SIAS as archives, and also probably within the archives in Sheffield as well. But it just shows you, there's not a great deal of archaeological data for the common itself. And this is, let's say, I think I did this search only a couple of weeks ago, so this is basically how it looks at the moment. So it was really the project was kind of set up really to try to investigate any archaeological remains that were on the common, try to identify any, and also just to feed into any management plans for works going on the common. So like thinning out to trees or any other kind of natural work. So they would help Sheffield City Council with their ongoing future management plans. But also it was really to get volunteers and locals involved in their local archaeology, their local heritage, and just to give them a different point of view as much as anything else. So I said not much archaeological work had been done. I managed to grab these photographs off the internet of a young man on the left-hand side there, Mike McCoy, a local Sheffield archaeologist. I say local, he's actually Canadian. So he's come all the way from Canada to do this. No, I didn't really. He lives in Sheffield, or at least he used to live in Sheffield. I don't really know what's happened to him. But He helped out with the Wadsley and Loxley commoners, who I've noticed a couple are in the audience tonight. And they were recording what is potentially a prehistoric stone circle up on the common there. You can see them on the left-hand side. This is quite a few years ago. I can't remember exactly when, but I'm sure there's somebody in the audience that could tell me exactly when this was done. And you can see on the right-hand side, this is kind of recording that they were doing. So there was also a small amount of work done, I think, in the 90s on the common, and it was a walkover survey which identified about 30 or 40 features across the common from an archaeological heritage point of view. So this is kind of all we had to go on with, really. So I thought it was high time that we really needed to have another look at the common to identify various areas and just to see what there was up there. So the work itself is being carried out as a walkover survey. I mentioned that, and this is a level 1 survey that's been taken that Historic England have put into place. This is one of their this is their practice, basically. They have 3 levels of survey, and I've highlighted level 1 there. I don't expect you all to read it, so don't worry. There'll be no quiz at the end of it. But basically, a level 1 survey is a very low-level survey where you literally will walk over the area, just making a visual record of any of the sites, the features that you can see. You'll probably do a small recording of them, either by photography, a written record, might do some measurements on them, and possibly even like GPS points, just so you can actually put this onto an overlay of a map. So it's quite a simple level of survey overall, but it works very well because you're able then to pinpoint points of heritage and interest later on as well as part of it. And as you can see there, level 2 and level 3, they build on that level 1, so they get more and more what's the word? They become more fixed on various archaeological features, and the recording level is a lot higher as it goes up. But a level 1 is perfect for volunteers, especially for people who have never done any archaeological work before, because you can teach it in the field. You can get a big group of people out and about, just looking at the landscape with you and talking it through and things. So this is kind of what we wanted. So we employed Chris Atkinson, a local community archaeologist. He basically led the project on the ground. I was hands off. I was dotted about on the while they were doing the survey, just to really stand about and tell crap jokes while Chris did all the work. And he led this project, and he also came up with a lot of the data. So I mentioned that this is going to feed into management plans and things. So eventually this will turn into a report, which Chris will produce, which will be accessible by everybody. Unfortunately, at the moment, it's a little bit on hiatus, but I'll talk about that later on. But one of the main things that you have to do really with surveys and with archaeology anyway is, well, one of the first things you have to do is map regressions. And we're fortunate in that we have the Ordnance Survey maps going all the way back to about the 1850s. And in some cases earlier than that as well in the archives. But the Ordnance Survey maps are available online. So very easily and very quickly, you can actually put together layers of maps just so you can see if there's any changes over time on the common itself. And this is one, just a typical one here of 1892. This is from Chris's forthcoming report. And you can see here the survey line, the red line shows exactly the survey point. And Chris broke this up into different areas, and then we tackled those over a series of a few days. Also, as part of the preliminary work, Chris was able to look at some of the LiDAR data as well of the common. And this is very good if you're not aware of LiDAR. It's a relatively new technique that we use in archaeology now, where lasers are shot at the ground from the air, and it strips away the vegetation, and it bounces back to the instruments that are measuring things, and you can actually see all the lumps and bumps in the ground. So you can actually pick out archaeological features. And from an archaeological point of view, LiDAR has been fantastic because it's really brought to light thousands upon thousands of new archaeological features that you just can't see on the ground. Unfortunately, it costs a lot of money to do if you do it at very, very high levels. But there is a lot of free LiDAR that is available online, which can pick up. The Environment Agency, I think, at least are in the process of putting all of England's LiDAR at a certain level free online. So you can pick that up as an archaeologist and just work with it. And again, this is from Chris's forthcoming report, but you can see here, this is a LiDAR image of the common itself. So you can probably make out, there's a few little lumps and bumps in there, some bits and pieces that are interesting. You can see there are walls, various different areas that are broken down into smaller areas across the common. So all this is great. The map regression, the LiDAR stuff is very good for trying to pinpoint where you want to look when you're actually on the ground doing the survey itself. So this is, incredible. It's preliminary stages, but an incredibly important stage of the survey itself. And Chris also produced these field survey recording forms as well, which you can see. So these would be filled in for every single feature that we came across on the common itself. There's a bit of a tick box up there where you've got the different feature types, also what kind of appearance it has, and then there's a description and interpretation as well. So this is where you can kind of let your imagination run wild a bit and describe it a little bit more than the prescribed tick boxes allow. And then you have to take photographs of the feature as well. So and then also say write down what photo number it is, so you can go back to it in the archive and things. This is all very typical archaeological recording systems. There's nothing untoward here. But if you've never seen these kind of things before, it's well worth, it's good to know how these things work. So this is part of what the outputs from the SLLP is to get volunteers trained up in using basic archaeological survey techniques. So actually on the field itself, as I say, we have the volunteers. I think just off the top of my head, I think there's about 25 to 30 volunteers in total. We did the work over 7 separate days, and it's exactly a year ago that we finished. In fact, I think it was a year and a week ago that we finished. So it was over winter. You can see from the photographs, it's better to do surveys in winter simply because the foliage is down, you can see more, you can get into places a lot easier than you can do in summertime when everything is up in leaf and growing through. But we did these over a few weekends, starting in, I think it was November, and then, as I say, we ended up finishing in March, and we were just about to go into the archives. Then lockdown happened, as I'm sure you all remember. So these photographs just show you some of the typical works that the volunteers were doing whilst we were on the ground. So we've got measuring of the various features. That's a bank that they're standing on there on the left-hand side, which appears to be a partially demolished wall. It looked like it was a double-lined pathway, a double-lined wall pathway, and one side had been pushed over. So these are interesting things that are just being changed over time. There's these pathways cutting across the common itself. On the right-hand side there, Alan is photographically recording the remains of a small cottage up near a place called Cave House on the common itself. And you can tell it's archaeological because it's got a ranging stick in it. That's the red and white thing there for the uninitiated. And I said, whilst we were on site, Chris had brought along all his maps that he'd done his map regression with. So we were able to actually work out pretty much where we were on the common, what kind of things we were looking at, what features were on the old maps, what kind of things we would expect to see there, and how much had changed or how much had disappeared, if anything had changed from those maps. And then on the right-hand side, you can see there Mike filling in one of those forms. didn't take long for people to learn how to do this. It's archaeology. It's not rocket science, but they, the volunteers definitely led this stuff, and it was great to see just after a couple of sessions, people were, really hands-on with this and really getting to grips with the work and just with the recording as well, even on the very cold days. I mentioned the photography as well. There again, another archaeological photograph. Why? Because there are ranging rods in it. But we also took GPS readings on every feature that we came across as well. They were, this is accurate. I'm not sure how accurate, to be honest. It's probably at least within a meter, but Chris will be able to use that information from these GPS points and then overlay that onto a map, again, as part of the record, as part of the report that will be produced at the end of this project. So everything that we had a photograph of, everything that we had a description of, also was GPS pinpointed as well. And I'll talk here really a little bit about what we found. Here's Alan precariously measuring the edge of what looks like a large industrial pond. This is one of the main features up on the common itself, is the industrial archaeology you'll see. This is possibly a pond, possibly it's a bell pit. I'm not entirely sure at this point, but it's one of several features. You can see this fills up. I think it fills up every winter and then empties out again. So that's an interesting little diversion for us there. We also had various gate posts. These are just really demonstrating the breakup of the common during the enclosure acts and things, and also just the fact that the landscape itself has changed over time. We're right on the edge there, you can see, of the golf course. It's a Hillsborough golf course, I think it is, and there's no walls there, but there obviously was at one point. So for these gate posts to exist there. And these gate posts and various different kinds of posts were scattered all across the common. There's another one there on the left-hand side, just showing again, that there probably was a lot more walls in the past than they are today. The right-hand side is a photograph of what is called the rifle wall, and we've had quite a lot of discussion about this. This seems to be connected to the rifle range that existed up here as well. This appeared in the early 20th century. The wall itself appears on the maps. I think it's 1909. Alan will probably be able to correct me on that. The maps prior to that, it doesn't exist, or it isn't marked on the map. So it seems to have been built in with a rifle range that also exists, which stretches to the right-hand side of this photograph. Now, we're not entirely sure if this served as a rifle butt, so if this was used to take the shot, so you would be firing towards this, or if you're firing away from it. I think at the moment the current consensus is it is actually a rifle butt for a smaller caliber rifle, probably a 2.2 or something like that, something small. They have what are called miniature rifle ranges, and I think Alan may have uncovered a little bit of information about this being perhaps a miniature rifle range. It's difficult to tell, but it kind of shows you that, even though this is probably only about 100 years old, we're still scratching our heads as to what it is and what its actual use was, until we find some kind of good documentary evidence about it. It's relatively conjectural at this point, unfortunately. There's also wells across the common. There are some that have been known for years, some that literally the Wadsley and Loxley commoners only found just the other week. We were over there, I think it was last week or the week before, recording that. This one was one of the first ones, the one on the left-hand side. You can see there's those gate posts again. They seem to be everywhere, but they're covering the well that's up on about the central point of the common itself. And this was one of the first things we went and had a look at and recorded as well. So some of these were probably public wells. Again, some of them are marked on the earlier OS maps. Some of them were probably private wells, and they're not marked on the OS maps by the looks of things. But again, there's a bit more work to be done on these, just to see how they fit in as well with some of the walkways and the paths and things that run through the common. You know, are the paths leading up to the wells and that kind of thing, are they tied in together? The photograph on the right hand side, unfortunately, photographing archaeology in woodland never really looks great. It looks fantastic when you're there, but when you take a photograph, it just looks like an undulating woodland. That is the remains of a bell pit. For those that don't know, bell pits are early industrial mining activities. Basically, you literally dig a hole into the ground, find a seam of whatever it is you're looking for. In this case, I think it would be coal, and then you dig out in a bell shape, hence the name. Incredibly dangerous, frightening work, and I'm just glad I wasn't born then, because I'd probably be down the bottom of the bell pit digging one out. I mentioned Cave House as well. This is us recording part of it. Some of that collapse there, you can see the guys are standing on, seems to be the remains of some kind of dwelling or small building or something. There is paint on the back of one of these walls, and it is literally, it seems to be a house that seems to be built into a cave, hence the name Cave House. There are photographs of it, and as I said, there's a small amount of remains of paint and what have you in this area. So this again is another little interesting site that hadn't really been recorded before until we were able to get our hands onto it. And it kind of just again shows you the difference in the use of the common itself as a place. I mean, it's not all just industry. There are people living up here as well as working up here. I mentioned industry. I've talked about it enough. I'll talk about it a little bit more because most of the archaeological features upon a common are industrial ones. The photo on the left-hand side, you can see large lumps and bumps there. This seems to be a large, possibly ganister mine. On the right-hand side is a smaller ganister mine, and I'm sure, talking to the Industrial Heritage Society, I'm sure you all know what ganister is. But for those that don't, it was used for lining furnaces, and obviously Sheffield is pretty well known for its furnaces. So if you're going to get ganister, you may as well get it close by, haven't you? Really, there's no point going further afield than next door, really. So this is really showing that the common itself is actually feeding into the industrial revolution that's going on in Sheffield in the late 18th and 19th centuries, because as Sheffield grows in size, the requirements for the materials to keep the furnaces going and to keep the industrial systems running obviously have to come from somewhere. So part of it came from up here in Wadsley, up on Wadsley and Loxley Common. So it's got, you know, an important place really in the history of the development of Sheffield as much as anything else. So I said that the sites were all GPSed in on site. And again, this is another photo from Chris's, or another image from Chris's forthcoming reports, which shows his basic raw data of each of the different remains or features that we found throughout the week excavation. It wasn't 2 weeks, it was a week, it was 7 days exactly. And I mentioned previously that the old survey of the site had captured about 30 or 40 different entries in its report. The volunteers actually found and identified and recorded, I think it's just over 100 different sites and features. So it just shows you, just even a week's work, you can identify so much. And this still isn't everything that's up there, because, as I say, just the other week, the Walks found another well. So, how many more are up there that are buried that we just didn't get time to identify? I started by saying this is a level 1 survey. This is a fantastic piece of work for that level, I think, and for the work that the volunteers. It's a real testament to the work that they put in, as much as anything else. Chris was also then able, from those points, to actually start to break up the common into various areas, just so we've got these different shape files that you can overlay onto the survey area, so you can see really where some of the different areas of activity are. So you've got the different quarries, you've got mines, you've got various enclosures. You can see the different field systems and those patterns building up there, and different pits and things. So as you know, this is what it's all feeding into. So then we will know in future, we'll be able to refer back to this for any management recommendations for the work that the Sheffield Council do up there. And being interested in military archaeology as I am, I could bore your ears off about that all night if you wanted me to, but I'm not going to. But I will mention that the common itself was used both in the First and Second World War for various military manoeuvres. The First World War, you can see these from the Telegraph here, the Sheffield Daily Telegraph. This is from March 1916, so literally a few months before the Battle of the Somme. There were manoeuvres. The Volunteer Defence Corps were up on the common doing various things that soldiers do. There's a machine gun section there, and one of the Wadsley and Loxley commoners, I think it may have been Alan Bailey, identified those rocks in the background. So a great piece of archaeological work there. So that photograph at the bottom is taken pretty much where the photographer is standing in 1916. The Second World War seemed to be largely from the Home Guard point of view, where they had dug several trenches, probably in defence against German paratroopers landing on the golf course, because that would have been identified as a good landing spot in the event of an invasion by Germany in the 1940s. And Alan at the Walk was able to put together a sketch plan here of some of the trenches that he's identified. You can see these ones in red. This is overlaid onto one of the official Wadsley and Loxley Common maps. But this is all work that Alan has done whilst at home during the lockdown. And again, you know, this I've worked in archaeology for 20 years, and this is better than a lot of site plans that I've seen, to be perfectly honest. But this is something that we want to explore in the future, is the place of the common in the defence of Britain. Really, it's something that hasn't really been identified or looked at in any kind of level, really, apart from what, again, really what Alan has done here and some of the work. The volunteers have spent really the last year looking online for a lot of information about the common, from historic documents, from any of the newspaper archives, that kind of thing. So although we've not been able to get onto site because of the COVID restrictions, the work on just pulling together information has continued and is continuing and is producing great results as well. It's really, really good stuff. There is also the possibility as well, when we were up there, Alan was showing us some possible Second World War barbed wire. We've got to look into this a little bit more, but it still seems to be in place if it is Second World War. And it looks like it's with concrete posts, which seem more military than a farmer just putting these things up. So again, it's probably part of that defense of just in case of German invasion and that kind of thing. So I'm kind of going to wrap up there, because, as I say, unfortunately, we got to a point where we were just about to go into the archives when lockdown occurred, and obviously, you know, it was going to be impossible to get into the archives. However, the Wadsley and Loxley commoners have been working on this project ever since, and they've been trawling the internet and various resource sites for more information. And Alan, as well, whilst the project was going on, he also put together this interactive map on the Wadsley and Loxley Commoners website, and that's the address for it there. Do go and check it out. It's great. You can click on any of these dots here and it'll tell you about it. This was all updated, and this is all work that was done, like I said, done by the Wadsley and Loxley Commoners. I had nothing to do with it. It's a really great piece of work, fantastic stuff. So I don't really have anything else to say about it at this point. simply because, as I say, this project is on hiatus, but as soon as we can get back up there, that would, it's going to be, there's going to be a lot to look at, and there's far more things up there to find as well that, we're all chomping at the bit at this point to get there. So I'll finish there, and I will just say, visit the Wadsley and Loxley Commoners website, have a look at their archaeological page, and also just go up and have a look at the common itself as well. It is really nice.
Right, thank you very much. I see I'm talking again, which is good. I remember to unmute myself. Thank you very much for that introduction to the common. One day we'll all be able to get up there and have a look round, and perhaps I don't know if any of our committee members are listening who wish to organise an organised trip up there, when Alex might be able to show us round, or one of his colleagues. Yeah,
that was the original plan. I mean, that's what this talk has come off the back of. We were going to go up there in summertime and have a walk around, but obviously,
yes, it's the order it comes in, isn't it? So something will happen in the future, not too distant, maybe even this summer. One never knows. Right, I see that nothing has appeared in the chat room asking questions. So
there's one here from Margaret and Barry. It says, if you want me to jump in on that one.
Yep.
So it's, were there any mine shafts, deep mines on the common? That's a good question, really. I don't know is the short answer. There are mine galleries heading into some of the areas, but whether they go down deep or not, we're not entirely sure. I wouldn't rule it out. I think there are a couple of mine shafts that you can see that have a certain amount of depth to them, but obviously you don't want to go scratching around on those just in case they fall away and you're stuck down a well for the duration. But yeah, I mean the industrial works seem to be largely quarrying rather than anything else, I would have said, rather than actual deep shaft mines. But I could be completely wrong on that.
A question has appeared saying, could you tell us a bit more about the rock art marked on the map of results?
I could if I knew anything about it. It's a short answer. I'm not sure what that one relates to. There are a couple of carvings on some of the rocks. One of the rocks I think has a W on it. Am I right, Alan? And I think that's probably what it's referring to. What it means, no idea. Could be, just one of the local quarry workers has just carved their name. When it says rock art, we're not talking, prehistoric handprints from 40,000 years ago. It's literally probably a quarry worker that's just carved something in there. As I say, I only noticed that myself just when I was looking at that slide. So do forgive me.
Alex, it probably refers to the sword in the stone, the engraving on the stone.
That was the other one, wasn't it? Yeah. There's a what looks like an engraving of a sword in one of the stones. With the eye of faith, I would say, Alan, but but yeah, it certainly looks like there's something carved in there. So it possibly refers to that as well.
Sorry, Anthony, Alex, could I raise a couple of points? I don't know whether you can hear me or not.
Yeah, we can hear you, Ron.
Yeah. Alex, good to put a face to a name, and as a background boy in all this, express my adoration for you and Alan, and the rest of the commoners for all the hard work you've done while I've been sat on my bottom at a safe distance. And great to hear.
I've just got to interrupt you there, Ron. I've done nothing. I told you, I just go up there and tell crap jokes. It's all them that's done all the work. I've done nothing.
Listen, mate, when you follow a crap football team like me, you're bound to tell crap jokes. But anyhow, you've all done darn well. A couple of points I think Alan was aware of. Great to hear, Alex, you're a military historian, because there's a photograph which I've passed on to Alan, which is in Sheffield Archives, which quite clearly shows some sort of mid-19th century artillery earthwork, which according to Kirk Smith's history, the manor and parish of Wadsley, dates from 1862 when the artillery volunteers go up there and bang away at stuff. And the village kids, according to Kirk Smith, sorry, I'm talking far too quickly, used to go up there and pinch bullets off. And that's quite clearly shown. The trouble is it's so overgrown. But playing up there as a child, and I was a child at one time in the 60s, we weren't allowed to go anywhere near that on bikes. That's one thing. And of course, a lot of you will be familiar with the sad loss of Mel Jones. And Mel Jones did a talk a few years ago to the commoners in which he raised the possibility of some medieval rabbit warrens, in which the conies, as I think they called them in those days, were raised as food, and it was owned by the lord of the manor. And he did a paper to all, but it's great. It's great to hear you say there's plenty to go at. And again, I've got to express my admiration to the commoners who go out there and get the boots mucky. So thank you all.
Thank you. Another question has appeared saying, on the rifle wall, could the rectangular holes have been for building the upper courses? I must admit that's what it looked like to me, slots for beams.
Yeah, I don't think it's for building, because the wall itself is not particularly high, so it wouldn't be a very difficult wall to build. I know you're referring to, you know, you'd see them in older buildings. We're again, the jury's out on this one, isn't it, Alan? But it may be that it was some kind of platform built into it. You know, may have had the targets on them. We're not entirely sure. It's because we're not entirely sure which way the rifle wall is being fired at, or if it's being fired away from. What those holes are for is a short answer, really. We don't know.
Yeah, we really think they were for mounting the targets on, and that they would shoot towards the wall. This is from the latest bit of work we've been doing. I've not sent you it, Alex, but yeah, and you were correct, 1909 for that wall.
I thought it was, yeah. Yeah, so you see the walks are already well ahead of me, and with anything I know, so.
And a remark that wouldn't there be bullet pock marks on the wall if people were firing towards it?
Well, this is again what I thought initially, but then if we think of it as a miniature rifle wall with a small caliber rifles that are firing towards you, like a 2.2 for instance, you probably wouldn't get pock marks. You would also probably have some kind of bullet stop behind the targets as well before they hit the wall, because my initial thought was that it's incredibly dangerous to be firing bullets at walls because they're going to be ricocheting off, chips will come off the wall, but you know, if they are firing at the wall, I would assume that there was probably some kind of earth bank, which might be something to do with the holes in the wall, for some kind of platform for that to sit on. Again, until we can get some kind of photograph or some kind of archival data for that, it's still a bit of a mystery, is the short.
Has any metal detecting been done under the wall to see if there's any lead shot?
Hang on a second, Alan, you were just about to say something there to follow up on what I said.
Well, just that, the question, we were contacted independently by somebody who is a military historian, an ex-squaddy, he describes himself as, who I've not met yet, but we're going to have a walk around at some point. And he sort of pushed us into the direction that this was a miniature rifle range, which were set up in the early 1900s because of the British experience in the Boer War, when we were found to be really quite bad at shooting rifles. And they set up these small local rifle ranges with, .22 caliber, basically lead bullets, which apparently wouldn't have caused any damage to the wall. They would just have melted.
If there were soft lead bullets, they'd have just just collapsed basically.
Yeah, that's what this guy was saying to us. Yeah.
Whether we're using the Martini Henry. I mean, the Martini Henry were in service right through First World War. Pretty packs power. black powder, but soft lead bullet, comparatively speaking.
Yeah.
And the metal detecting question?
No, because it's banned. No, I'm only joking. We haven't got the resources to do it at the moment, and we've only done the walkover surveys. I mean, this information is literally hot off the press with what Alan is saying about the use of it and somebody getting in touch with them. This has only happened in the last month or so, last couple of months. So this is really new stuff. The project was just to identify as many different sites as we could, and then from that point filter into the interesting stuff what the Wokes were interested in pursuing as well. So although the project's been going for nearly 18 months now, it's still in the early stages, unfortunately.
Right. Well, let's try you with this one then. Has the stone circle been relocated and confirmed?
Well, it's relocated because we know where it is. Confirmed, no, but I'm erring on the side of caution. I know Mike, and if he reckons it's prehistoric, I'm going to go with Mike, and I think I'm happy for Mike to say it's prehistoric and for me to agree with him. But again, it's one of those other things, it's like something else that we could look at. We just haven't had time to do it, that's all. But yes, the circle is still there. It hasn't moved any. You can see one of the larger upstanding stones is still pretty obvious and apparent, and the rest of the stones are still there in place. So if you had the inclination, you could easily locate the ones that they recorded at the time. But yes, it's again, another unanswered question on the Wadsley and Loxley Common, I think.
Work in progress.
Absolutely. The problem is with this kind of these projects is you go in to answer questions, but you end up with more questions than you started with.
Of course. Right. Nothing else has appeared in the chat. Any verbal interjections? Everybody is questioned out, are they?
Now it's Nigel Clark has got his hand up.
Yeah, if you can hear me, I tried to send a message to Tony, but he doesn't appear to have got it. Someone was saying about were there any deep mines up there? Complicated. The whole bit up there is like Gorgonzola, and a lot of unmapped mines. But Ray Batty did the Forgotten Mines of Sheffield. If any of you got it.
Yes, I did have a copy of that, but I think it's in the office at the moment, and I've not been in the office for 18 months.
Chapter 4 covers Worrell, Wadsley, and Loxley, and say from memory, there are lots. There's some shallow day pits and there's bell pits, but it say there's bits all over there, going right up as far as Holdsworth.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the place, once you recognise the bell pits, they are just everywhere up there. And then you've also, as I say, got these galleries going into the sides as well. There's lots of little quarries and things. So it is like you say, like Gorgonzola, really. There are a lot up there. One of the things that we could do is map the mines, get a good archaeological map of them. I don't know how much work that would take, but a lot of this is also, it's driven by what the commoners want to do as well. I kind of see it as their land, so let them take the lead on where they want to go with the archaeological investigations. But the thing with the common is, there is so many questions, as I said, that you could spend the rest of your life really just following various different rabbit holes and mine holes, for years, and probably still not discover everything that's up there anyway.
And a question that has appeared about future plans for investigation.
Well, I mentioned it. I mean, Alan has already started doing some work on the trenches up there. So we were talking about it just the other week about possibly pursuing those The next real thing that we wanted to do was to get into the archive to look at some of the old mapping, some of the tithe maps and things, the pre-1850s stuff, the stuff that isn't online, and just also have a look in the archives as well, what other information there was about the common itself. So that was really going to be the next step that we had with this project. But you know, as this is a volunteer-led thing, I need to sit down with the Walks and just see where they want to go with things as well, and make some decisions on that. Once we've got Chris's report in front of us, we can say, okay, this is interesting, this is interesting. So future plans, it's a work in progress.
All right, thank you very much. Anything else before I drop the hammer? I can drop the hammer and stop the recording. So what I'll do then is I'll say thank you again to Alex for this interesting talk, and work in progress. There is plenty. So perhaps we can hear from you again in a couple of years when you found it all.
Absolutely, 100%.
And so I will say thank you, and we'll say the meeting has officially finished. The